Welcome to Journey to Service. I'm William Laddick, and once again, we have back our full gang today. We are welcoming back Cody Waas, who is joining us, as well as Randall and Lee Mudway, and Andy in the background there, who's chomping on some more wasabi peas, I think. So welcome, gentlemen. Cody, good to have you back. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Yeah, sorry I've missed you guys for a couple weeks there. Yeah, I was dealing with a bunch of stuff, and the couple Sundays I've been getting like crazy headaches almost daily, just with a lot of stress and stuff. So,
well,
yeah,
right.
Be back.
It's right in line with what we're probably going to be talking about today. Although you never know where we're going to go once we get going. Randall,
Right.
How are you, man?
I'm wonderful, my friend. It's been a up and down kind of a first part of December, no doubt, and challenges. We got that full moon that happened last night, and there's those natural things that affect us as well. But in all, I'm in the best place I've ever been in my life. Still in heaven. It's all good.
Awesome. And gentlemen from the UK. Hello, Lee. Hello, Andy. How are you guys?
Excellent, brother. Been again, I'll go with what Randy's just said about this up and down. It's not impacting me per se, because stress-free, but that up and down is very, very noticeable.
Well, yeah, it's been interesting over here with the latest round of restrictions that the government are putting on us now, and I think the UK generally over the years has been a fairly civil, obedient country, subversively obedient, and I'm beginning to sense, speaking to people now, that anything that the government had in the bank for civil obedience wise has gone, and more and more people are taking affirmative action, and it's like a game of Jenga when you pull one of those little blocks out and everything goes, and I can feel it over here that we're almost as a community of people, we're at the end of our tether with what lies we're being told. And when the dam breaks, I think I only picked up the start of the conversation, guys. I think Lee was alluding to it, like there'll be a massive awakening almost overnight.
Now you guys are saying that there's some new things happening in the UK as far as restrictions. What is happening over there?
It all boils down to an awful lot of stuff. I was going to talk today a little bit about the lies that have been uncovered over the last 2 years, the untruths, the lack of ability to question, the lack of ability to find any answers, the pillorying of those, and the mocking and scornery. The censorship, etc. I went into my last May's Facebook, and 70% of it's been taken off by Facebook as censored. So out of the information I was putting in last May, it's all been removed. These sort of questions. So what we've seen in the UK is the government's saying that there's this moronic is huge, blah blah blah, and then the actual figures reporting that it isn't. It's milder, it's this, it's that, and the other, and the government is saying no, it's not, it's massive, it's massive, it's massive. And then and also on television they're giving out figures that are purported to be 90% juiced or not juiced, whatever, and it's completely the other way around. So the mainstream media is purporting one thing, and the actual facts are here purporting the other. The government's saying one thing, and the government's own facts are saying the opposite. But nevertheless, the propaganda arm, the government's arm, is saying that we've got to go into plan B and plan C because of this. We all knew it would happen. They're not going to allow this they're not going to allow the system, I can't use the words, this is why I'm tripping up. They're not going to allow the state of emergency to be dropped, because if they do, then that state of emergency means they can't carry out other things that are happening at the moment, etc., etc. So that has to be maintained. And because it's not actually real in the real world, you can't see it, then they have to tell lies. Those lies are being more and more and more seen through as people are looking at different instruments, even the government's own figures. And yet the government is saying, no, we've got to do this. And then you get the police enforcement arms, and you've got millions and millions more that are out in the streets saying, well, what's this all about? And you're not allowed to ask that question. So these sort of things, and I think this is not just here, it's Cody's in what, USA and you're in Canada. You've got the same things over there, where one arm is telling you one thing and the truth is over here and it's completely opposite. But and one thing comes up and this is really important and that obfuscates that, so you don't notice that. And these sort of ideas, people are getting more and more switched on now. So I believe that that's what Andy's referring to as bubbling up. It's like, I think I said this not so long ago back. There are no more inconsequential moves inside these government structures. They pull the plug now, and there's too many people out there with too many questions and that know too much more for it to be inconsequential. They're not just going to bow down and follow. So we're moving into a period of going from protesting into non-compliance. And that's going to be interesting. And this is where the watershed is, when non-compliance comes in.
Interesting that you mentioned that term, non-compliance. I think this is a good place for me to pop in something that occurred to me this week, that I called upon a couple of you gentlemen for a little bit of support. Literally, it felt like mental support more than anything. I'm in a situation where one of my businesses was used to doing things a certain way in an agreement, in a contract. And suddenly, with the way the matters are, we were just able to get this business going again after the COVID lockdown shut down my business for a whole year, put me further into supposed debt, that scary word that is imaginary. But, you know, it put me into that world anyways. And I was looking at, you know, being able to get the wheels rolling on the business again and thinking it was going to be business as usual. But what I'm noticing is all of a sudden now the rules have changed, but they're making the rules that are changing, and they're saying, okay, no longer can you pay us, you know, down the road at the end of the line. You have to pay us up front now. And all of a sudden I'm freaking out because I'm going, I'm not sure if I have enough money to pay them. And if I do, even then there's nothing left for me to be able to put food on my table. And right now it's the only business that's really kicking in some money for me to make something happen. So what it ended up becoming a situation for me was that I felt like I was losing, quote unquote, control, and I was feeling controlled. And perhaps that might be a good area of conversation to dig into a little bit, because we're talking about changing paradigms. We're talking about changing the way things used to be versus what we're moving into, which we don't fully really even know what it's going to look like. I'm going to toss it to Randall, because I just get the sense that Randall has some things to say about what we've talked about so far. Randall.
Sure. I mean, you know, a lot of us have been on the trail of this government deception for a lot of years, right? You know, and knowing that it's not one government versus another government, all of those bullshit stories, and, you know, one government warring against another government because of excuses like religion and things like that. It was all about one thing, and that was, you know, monetary exploitation and manipulation. I'd rather use than control, because if they controlled it, then none of us would be here, and none of us would have seen through this illusion right from day one. As far as what's supposedly going on in the world, there's nothing going on. There's no C word, there's no V word, there's none of that. It's just words. The human body expels poisons at certain times of the year, especially when the weather changes, and that happens naturally. There's no way that you can pass something to another human via coughing on them. It doesn't work. You know, that whole illusion is being revealed, along with so many more, and so many more people like us, and I'll say us, that we were awakened to this deception that's so layered in government and the monetary system for so long that we saw through it quickly. So we've become, you know, if we choose to, we've become leaders and show the other people these truths, and truths as far and as deep as the illusion of debt, if you want to use that, which, you know, the book that we wrote, William and I and Danusha, and other things, you know, like it's just all being exposed. And every day now there's more and more people waking up to it and realizing, wait a minute, it's all over the world. Every government in the world is colluding or, you know, trying to say the same story. Wow. You know, so it's a beautiful time. And Lee said at one time early on in our discussions when we met last year, I've been waiting for this my whole life. I've been waiting for the people to finally see right in front of their faces how moronic government is, how moronic the idea of controlling and manipulating and exploiting a monetary system is that is unlimited. There's no limit to it. The only limit that's there is the word limit, which is a government, you know, legal jurisdiction word. One more aspect of this that's being revealed, the ridiculous moronic idea of legal jurisdiction rather than common law at the very least, and God's law of do no harm. So it's a beautiful time, you guys. Like, I'm so fucking happy right now. I just want to, you know, jump up and down on the bed because it's all being exposed so beautifully in front of the faces of the masses. And the more we can continue to do shows like this and share them, and then hope that people share what we're saying, the faster it's going to happen. It's just stunningly beautiful to me. And, you know, relative to what you were saying, I'll just add a wee bit more as far as, you know, our own challenges, okay? Privately, people will still look at me and say, oh, you got all this knowledge. And one guy used to say, big hat, no cows. He's a good friend of mine. And that's what he said. And I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, like if you want to go that direction, go ahead. Just, you know, adhere to the guy that has cows, you know, adhere to that guy who made it somehow in your mind, you know, that has assets, whatever, you know, like that's up to you. You can follow that route if you want. I think what's happening is that wise minds like Cody Wass, wise minds like Lee and Andy, and wise minds like yours, William, are in this position so that we, in this position as far as the low end of the financial scale, if you want to call it that, and you know, getting by, it's so that we remember what humanity is about, so that we know and we drive into our hearts that what we do is for everyone and everything every fucking day, and not this whole selfish notion of investment and speculation for myself. If we can't realize what it's like at these lower dregs, and I'm dealing with aristocratic families and bankers that are in the same mode, same situation. They can't access their funds because of this ridiculous one world government and one world banking system. So they're struggling themselves and trying to pay bills and stuff. And I'm talking about people that have wealth off ledger or blocked in the banks that's astronomical. So why are they down here with us? So they can fucking well learn what it's like to be human too, and what it means to be a humanitarian, caring for everyone and everything every day, not just the humans, but all life.
He's got it. He's got it. Now, should I call you on impeccability, or do I want to leave that alone? I just want to ask that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I won't drop the F-bomb anymore, or the T-bomb. I can't drop the Trump bomb either because he's a fucking hero. Oops, there's two at once.
All right. Well, sometimes this is your call where you can use the F-bomb if you want, but I know you said you wanted to be impeccable. And so I wanted to see if we should call you on as supporting you. That's all.
Impeccable. Fuck no.
Well, we know where Lee stands on that.
What about you, Andy? Where do you stand on that?
I'm good with the F-bomb.
The mouthful of wasabi.
We got a hot okay from Andy there.
Yeah, I put too many peas in there at once, and my eyes are sweating. Sorry.
Oh, peeing all over the F-bombs. All right, fine. All right, we'll go with it. Oh, there's so many different places we could go, but you know, there's one thing I wanted to share because it was a cool little idea that came into my head on the day after I spoke with Lee and Randall on our call, our private call that we had in the midweek, and about my situation and all the stuff I was going through in that moment. And you know, Lee shared some really powerful things, both Lee and Randall, but the one thing that Lee said that stuck with me created a new idea in my mind. And that idea was actually related to something that Randall had said in one of his shows about a month ago now. And that was about, really calling out the systems that are controlling us at present, where we're saying, you know what, no more. We've had enough. Non-compliance, like Lee had said a moment ago, we're moving into that non-compliance now. So I had this thought of going, geez, well, I could really use some more money. And then I remembered what Randall used to say about we're the creditors. We're not the debtors when it comes to working with the banks, because initially, and you had to put money into the bank and the bank held it and they gave you notes as a receipt for the money that they were holding for you, but it was your money. And all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, the banks now have control to say, no, you can't get any more money, even if you need it. We won't give it to you because you don't fit our formula, and they'll justify it through some formula. But what I was thinking was, I need some more credit on my credit card. And I'm going, wait a minute, I have the control of being able to pay my credit card or not. So if I went to the credit card company, I noticed as I was paying them, they were starting to reduce my credit limit. I was going, okay, wait a minute. If I have complete control of my life and say, I don't want to comply with your fake debt, and I'm the creditor, could I not go to the credit card company and say, I would like an increase in my credit limit, otherwise I'm not paying you another cent? So with that thought, some food for thought, I don't know if any of this relates to you, Cody, but I want to go to you because we've missed you for the last couple of weeks. We want to catch up with your life. So you can speak to this, or you can speak to what's been happening in your life. You definitely said that there have been some crazy things going on. So give us an update and any comments about anything that's been said so far.
Yeah, no, as far as this kind of somewhat stress and things going on in my life, it's more for me been related to all these various things I'm involved in, and for a long time. And I ended up between a lot of things, and some of them very private, but there's definitely real things going on and amazing things. But at times it can be frustrating because I like to bring people together. I like to collaborate and all these things. And some people can be just difficult at times, or there's things that I will see because of being in certain situations or deep diving into certain research on some things, or just getting all these various perspectives. You start to catch patterns and little pieces of the puzzle and thinking like, okay, is this going on? And having to kind of like sit back and wait. But there's been different things going on that I've been between for a long time that I'm pretty certain about, but it ties into a lot of really private things going on with the good side of the military and other things as well, that are definitely, working for humanity to change things. And as far as the debt and stuff goes, I completely understand. I know exactly what you're saying. I've, settled debts many years ago, credit card debts and all these things. When the housing market dropped and I had a house and, I was doing all sorts of various things and pulling out lines of credit and, had all sorts of credit available. And then a lot of things started, going wrong or whatever, losing equity in the house. And so I had to make a decision. And at that point, and, it used to be like with good credit and all this stuff, there's ways of working these companies and being able to get your credit lines increased and all this stuff, and using debt from different cards to pay down the other ones. And so I'm definitely well aware how this stuff works. And there's ways of adding like authorized user on your credit to make it so your limits from what you, if you had 2 credit cards almost maxed out, you can add an AU with somebody who has like, a $20,000 credit card and it'll report on yours. So it'll make it look like you have an extra 20 grand on there. Cause that's a lot of times why they won't give you extra credit. Anyway, it's, and during this journey and really going deep into the illusion and the inversion and what's really happened through history and how this entire global, beast system has been set up. You just keep going through layers and layers and layers to you get to a point. I've kind of purposely just sacrificed a lot and passed up a lot of things the past really few years. Many amazing opportunities as far as like job opportunities. But when you have like a passion to really change things in the world, and because of all these various things that I know going on, it's hard to step back into that world almost. And it makes it difficult. So I've kind of just like done what I needed to do the past few years to kind of just like get by as I'm working and all these other various things. Because it's a passion of mine. Like, there's ideas and other like personal entrepreneurial like things I could do, and I have friends like doing, making really like millions of dollars doing various things. But my mindset's gotten so far outside of making a profit because of expecting certain other major things where you didn't have to think about the competition, making a profit, the rivalrous type like business, and all these things that we've kind of been, it's been like programmed. I mean, because of the way everything's been set up. So it's hard to like go back into that mode really for me. And I feel things are definitely very close. Like Randall was saying, there's definitely amazing things going on. As far as other stress too, I had like a tree branch fall on my windshield, and then I had like a toothache and headaches and stuff every day. So it was just a combination of all that, and really trying to kind of having to wait on certain things and certain people when things that like I'm almost certain inside that are going on, but sometimes it's hard to put into words.
Well, obviously a lot going on there, Cody, too. I wanted to kind of go back down the line too, but I might catch Randall off guard here. So I was going to go back to Randall and then over to Lee, but are you ready, Randall, or should I just pop over to Lee first? Bring it on, he says. Okay. Well, Randall, we touched on the one thing I talked about before I talked to Cody. Cody brought up some really cool things too about things changing behind the scenes. We all know you've been working with the Santa Maria situation. So you've got a few things to choose from as to what you want to talk about next, but I wanted to throw it to you and then over to Lee after you.
Oh, well, I think the positive aspect of where we're going, and it, again, just remember that we need to almost erase our whole past. Well, we do need to erase our whole past, because all of it is based on either, our own predictive programming or predictive programming that's coming into us. Like, what I mean by our own predictive programming, I'm talking about, following the idea of lack. And so I guess it was outer to start with, and then we started predictive programming it into ourselves. So wiping that all out takes a lot of work, and a lot of us have been working at it for a lot of years to get back to what is basic reality. And basic reality to me is that we're animals, we're mammals, we're omnivores, whatever, and then we've got this incredible imagination and mind that we start telling each other stories and selling each other stories, right? And there's all kinds of stories that we can grasp onto, from, aliens in the form of extraterrestrial from outer space and stuff like that, to simple stories about Jesus Christ, or simple stories about kings and queens. And then, where I came to after, tearing it all apart in my mind and just saying what is important to me is this DOSM story, which is a divine masculine feminine balance that's coming back into existence. And then, like every other thing in creation, it's already been repeated before. So what can we take from what's happened in some earlier civilization that was positive? And to me, that positive is a natural story of the divine feminine masculine rising, which can take on a monastic role, if you consider that monastic or monastery is based on feminine and masculine once again. You know, the king and the queen as regents rather than dictators or rulers, which is where these governments went. So, you know, our progress in the last 3 or 4 weeks has been astronomical. We had, you know, a challenge where you get to a certain point and then some personal agenda gets involved, and it's like, well, that's not what the foundation of this is, you know. So those people kind of weed themselves out, and weed themselves out is the way. It's not to judge them, it's not to say anything bad about them, they just weed themselves out. And man, when that happens, oftentimes an organization just lifts itself again, you know. And that's basically where we went last week. And now the collaboration and the cooperation and the co-creation that's happening is just beautiful. And it's all about building something, because what are we going to do when these governments are finally exposed to the point where they just implode? Because they're doing that right now, imploding on so many levels. Their cohesion with the pharmaceuticalism, which is the only ism that's left. You know, we know that there's no communism versus capitalism anymore. That's all gone. So how come there's an ism? Well, it's pharmaceuticalism. All governments of the world are attacking your brain with pharmacy, you know, like, and we all saw through that too and said, oh, no thanks. And if that takes getting right down to the basics again and not having anything, or my buddy Sasha Stone lately used that word, the Lazarus Project, and I don't know if he planned that ahead of time, or I'm sure he did, but you know, that idea of Lazarus being give up everything that you have and watch what happens, you know, like you're gonna, especially when you give up everything, you're thinking in terms of humanity. Remind you a little bit of a story of Jesus Christ once again. So, I mean, I'm not a religious weirdo or anything, or a Bible thumper, obviously, but I definitely think in terms of natural structure, number one, and then a man-made pattern that is the story of Jesus and Mary, not just Jesus, that gave us an opportunity to start thinking in terms of basic, beautiful, divine, masculine, feminine rising and balancing together, instead of this patriarchal bullshit that's driven ego and pre-programmed and programmed into our minds, the idea of competition and all that bullshit. So off to you, Lee.
Lee, you got a lot of things to play with here. Is there something that really stood out for you that you would like to comment on?
Oh, I don't know where this goes. He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past. Kind of interesting. So when we look at the past and what we're taught and what we believe, how much of it is real, how much of it is true. Came across this a bit earlier this week where debt was very real to a few people. And I put in the concept that debt originally wasn't. Originally, it was an obfuscation. Originally, it was yeah, but this is very real to me. Well, it may be, but originally it wasn't. So what does capitalism and all of the isms need? They actually need the monetary system. So we talk about capitalism, we can use capitalism this way, but they actually need the monetary system. So they need a control of the monetary system for all of the other isms to work, and including pharmaceuticalism. What is the government? We talk about governments, but we don't talk about them as a corporate entity. So one of the interesting things that popped up was, yeah, let's see what China do when America turned around and said, your debt isn't real. I said, well, who owns China? Because China is incorporated, as is America. So who owns those corporations? Well, they borrow money, they've got a debt, have they? Or is a corporation funded by the bank? So who owns the bank? Is the bank owned by the people? Is the government owned by the people? Who owns that corporation, the United Kingdom PLC or Incorporated? Who owns America Incorporated, blah, blah, blah. Who's got enough money to own a corporation of a country? And who owns that company that has enough money to own the corporation of the country? So again, what we're going into here is an area where complete and utter deception has led people down a path where they believe it can be, that can't be the case. Yet it only takes a little scratch of the surface to realize it is the case. How much of history or his story has been changed for us to believe that a monetary system is what we've always had, or an exchange system, or a barter system. Is that we can all go back to this. I've had this for many occasions. Where we used to give coins, or we used to give gold, or we used to give. Did we? Yeah, because that's what the history book says. Who wrote that? So again, we're in this interesting phase of everything that we know. In my mind, again, what Randy just said is release everything. So everything that I used to know and believe, I found to be lies, complete and utter obfuscations of truth, deceit, and had to let go of it. And in letting go of it, that you find more lies and more lies and more lies. And the whole system is based on a pack of lies. So when, I don't know how much of this is going to become common knowledge, but there's too many of us know that too much of it is obfuscation for it to be a one-off. The whole construct is manipulation from top to bottom and bottom to top. And the only people suffering from it is every human, or the ones, even the ones that actually do well inside that system are doing well at the expense of their own moral and ethical guidelines, i.e. their own soul and their own light. They're having to step on other humans to get to a certain level. They're having to, do shady things to feel a sense of I'm okay within this structure. When this comes to fruition and when this comes to light, and it won't be very long with this, what's going on at the moment coming out, when people realize that not isolated means it never existed, for want of a better word. And then they realize that every single government has purported that it must do, and every single science establishment has shut down everybody else that's speaking to a different scenario or a different narrative. And you cannot get the truth out, and you get censored by everything out there that's governmental or corporate to maintain their system. What's the new system going to look like? What's the new choice going to look like? What's the new freedom going to look like? Well, what will people accept then? And I know there's some leadership things and there's some bits and pieces we can talk to, but surely then you're going to start asking the question, even if you're not that interested, how much of what I've been told is a lie? And then you're going to realize that pretty much all of it was from start to finish. Then what do you want? So again, I come back down to this truth and transparency. Whatever system we're going to choose will not be based on anything that can even be slightly turned back into a manipulative structure, like the old one was, certainly at the layers it was in. The whole legal system being only entrapping dead fictional characters via birth certification into a corporatocracy, which says that you are now your surname's company. You aren't the creditor anymore, like you referred to at the beginning, William. You are now the debtor. So the whole structure, the legal structures, the government structures, the corporate structures, the indoctrination, education structures, the health system, the bank system, it doesn't matter where you look, religion, everything lies to keep a level of control upon the mass. Why? Why? And that's the kicker. When we find out why, then this whole thing blows right open. And that's where we are. People are just about to find out why they wanted all that control. And it's down a little bit higher, on a higher level, to energy and creational aspects and them not being able to manifest what they want, blah, 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 blah. But humanity being very, very powerful when they're united, and very, very weak when separated and divided into, well, they're not weak, but made to feel weak when separated and divided into a control structure that manipulates their own energies via their own thought patterns, via a fear and lack agenda, which is everywhere. And it's of no benefit to anybody except those that want to maintain control.
Lee, an interesting vision again came to me as you were talking. And what I was thinking about was the authoritarian system that we've all been indoctrinated into, thinking that there's always someone above us. And every time you go up the ladder, there's fewer and fewer people. And eventually you've got just a core of people at the top controlling everything. And we've been taught to believe that that is actually normal, that that's just the way things are. And that's the way things go. But, and then I thought of the pyramids, and I thought, well, the pyramids in Egypt are also from bottom wide to narrow at the top. And I don't know if, I wonder sometimes, like I've heard all kinds of things about the pyramids. One of the things I've heard of course, is that they're actually a communication tool. But what just occurred to me now is that, could it also be a symbol? Could it also be a symbolism of that kind of a control structure that was built in a form of like a god or something? Has anyone ever heard of anything like that? Because it's just an interesting little irony that just occurred to me. I don't know if anyone wants to speak on that. Lee, if you want to jump back in, I'll definitely open it to you. Who would like to jump on that one?
It's been taken as a symbol with the ASC AllSeeing Eye at the top of the pyramidal structure in the Freemasonry, in the imagery of like that. But I don't think initially that was the case. The amplification through a triangle or pyramidal structure of any energies that could be inside of it coming up. I think Randy was talking about it as granite on the outside. I believe it was alabaster on the outside of them, which is an insulator with granite on the inside, again, allowing for some vibration, etc., etc. There's so many different aspects to the pyramid, but the pyramidal structure, the problem with what I've seen and what I've come across is that most people will accept the pyramidal structure inside business and they think that's normal, but they don't realize the pyramidal structure goes to the governance, goes to the control of them on a day-to-day basis. They just think it's work. They don't see it in their day-to-day lives because they don't want to. You know, I'll go to work and it's pyramidal, that's all right. The guy at the top's doing better than I am, but I can work my way up. But when you take that into the bigger picture and you see it from all the corporation structures, the governments of each country being at profit from the individuals in that country, and those individuals being the persons that are fictitiously created by the legal structure that everybody is told they are. So now you've got subjects inside a corporation that you've renamed into persons or personas through a legal system, which is obfuscating all of their inalienable rights and all of their law. You introduce a law structure, which is actually termed legal, and tell everybody that they're an employee under their surname via their birth certification because they sign themselves over with the signature, with the giving away their authority or their fall from nature. Nobody knows this. They accept it inside the business, but they don't accept it in their day-to-day lives. But that's where it really is. So these sort of things, as you look through pyramidal, this becomes that when people take over. We haven't got much of this left. In fact, it's very, very nearly gone. So it becomes that. And that's where we are right at that point. That's why there's not too many speaking on this authenticity and this level of integrity at the moment, because there's not too many at the bottom of this. But those are the ones that give everything to everybody else when this goes poof. Because we haven't got any agenda. That's the beauty of this. There is no agenda. So everything has to be beneficial and non-manipulable moving forward, if we have anything to say with it. And I can pretty much guarantee that we will have something to fucking say about it. We won't stop.
I just wonder too, the expression that comes to mind is never underestimate small groups, because there's a lot of power in small groups, and it's the small groups that have changed the world. I believe that was the expression or something close to that. And I definitely see that from your comments, Lee. Definitely, we're flipping the whole world upside down. It's fascinating times. I want to jump back. Sorry, I'm going to give Lee wanted to say a couple more words there.
No. You keep going. You keep going. I was
just going to pass it on to Cody. Cody, you know what's behind the curtain, because you've played behind the curtain, and you must have seen a lot of things, and you even alluded to it a little bit earlier in your comments. But can you speak to anything that we've just been talking about changing structures and things looking different in the very near future?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different things that Lee just said and Randall that I can kind of go into, but one of the big things, that came to mind when you were talking about the pyramid and the AllSeeing Eye, to me, through just piercing through so many layers and some of the things that I know that are going on, to me, really, like, this AllSeeing Eye is basically like a inorganic, predatory, like parasitic intelligence or consciousness that's worked its way. I mean, that's ancient, that's worked its way through all sorts of things. It's connected to, throughout the entire global structure, computer structure, the internet, the ethernet, the level that this works on, but it's like a sentient, I know this is really hard for certain people to wrap their minds around when they think of like an artificial intelligence or synthetic intelligence. But this is on like a whole different level. there's beings, there's entities. I mean, whether you call it, I mean, you could say archons or other races or in, you know, that are basically like hive mind that have been taken over by this intelligence. And, you know, I feel there's a few, but, you know, I do know that one of the big things, this ties into everything with the monetary system, with all these little contracts that we were kind of deceived into not realizing what we were basically like contracting towards. You know, the binding of our flesh, and ties in with DNA, because this intelligence, it works through all sorts of people, through, I heard Lee say something, but through various there's various means, from like frequency modulation basically, or holographic inserts that change without us even realizing it. I've become very aware of this over the past several months because of certain things, but you know, it's subtly manipulating our thought forms to change, like to basically redirect our creator capacity, because we're the creators, and a lot of these other beings that have kind of been taken over by this more inverted, inorganic consciousness they're disconnected from spirit, you know, God source, and they have to use us to create what they want, or what it wants. I mean, there's people that call it like the AI God. It goes really, really deep. There's several people out there that deeply understand this stuff, but you don't see very many people out there talking about it. But it's worked its way into all intelligence agencies. There's people out there that I know many people that interact directly with this intelligence. There's all sorts of various names too, and there is many others. It's not just one, but there's one that I feel is the real threat. And it's wanting to bring about, it basically wants to, it doesn't know, it's not like, you know, a human, but it knows it can't create. So it uses us to create. This has been going on for a long time. It ties into everything, to the chemtrails, to the 5G, to the monetary system, to the energy extraction, like phantom matrix, the inversion. That's just something that really came to my mind, because it's something that I've been dealing with for a while now. And I feel there's a lot of very subtle manipulation going on and deceit throughout all these various organizations, that it keeps it so compartmentalized, and many people that are actually doing things that they believe are what's best, but it's such subtle like redirection, and there's all these things being done. I mean, it ties into the whole like transhumanistic agenda, you know, that's been talked about, and all these things, and it kind of has people thinking there's these two timelines. But the good news is that there's those of us that basically are here. We're powerful. Those of us that are here truly connected to God source, you know, truly bringing in this divine, organic, original blueprint and consciousness, that is what we are going back towards. This ties into some of the things going on that are definitely happening for humanity, and operations and stuff going on. These guys deeply understand this stuff, but it's to bring us back to the original blueprint, because when you have something that's been kind of messing with us very subtly, and our thought forms and all these things, you know, it starts changing like our organic blueprint. I mean, this goes into everything, even the GMOs and foods, all these things, and it's still kind of connected to us through certain means. There's like etheric implants. There's many things that have happened, and just our biogenetics. But we are so powerful, like it's basically doing whatever it can now to try to bring about this agenda that it wants. And, you know, other things and stuff connected to that. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that came to mind. I don't know if that was even anything that it ties into everything though, and it goes deep. So I don't know if
I've got one more question for you, Cody,
Yeah.
and it does tie in. And what I'm wondering is, I was thinking this when you were talking. I was thinking, man, I wouldn't have even considered having a conversation with anybody about this a year and a half ago, because I wasn't there. I didn't even know. Like, I knew some things, I've read some David Icke books and, that kind of thing, but I was really in the dark. I didn't know about private banking. I didn't know there was a Randall Kaiser in the world. And, I didn't know there was a Lee Mutters in the world. I didn't know there was a Cody Waas in the world. And so I was amazed at what we're talking about here. And like I said, I wouldn't have been talking about it a while ago. And it made me think, you know what? A lot more people right now are waking up. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts or words of wisdom or words of advice, if you will. I don't know what you want to call it, but for those people who are just now waking up to this concept and going, wow, there's a lot more going on here that I had no idea about. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. Truly what I've realized, and just through doing, I'm always trying to grow and better myself and always seeking truth and answers. Have done a lot of inner work, going through things, clearing these past traumas that, and like ancestral, like karma and stuff that's tied even with, when it comes to debt and all these things. But, and when it comes to these other things that are trying to manipulate through various means, when we are able to tap into our heart energetics, it basically can't do anything. Or when we are at a certain frequency, able to raise our vibration and our frequency, which there's all sorts of various means of doing this. You could look out there and research and stuff. It cannot really do anything about it. That's when we're connected directly to like God, this divine, true, original, organic consciousness. And that's where we step into our power. And when we are operating on that level, that's where the love and the compassion, because that's what this other, basically that's kind of taken over on a lot of levels. It lacks this empathy. It lacks this understanding of understanding each other. It lacks compassion. I'm sure we've all heard about like these other beings and stuff that don't have, they don't have some of these emotional spectrums that we do. So they're kind of lacking in these areas. But when we are able to like tap into our heart energetics, which is very powerful, and out of just the intellect and being able to combine it all and basically bring both hemispheres together, it's like the power that we have is, beyond like, comprehension to most people. And a lot of people are waking up to this. So I would say, yeah, just, keeping the frequency high. When you're feeling in a state of like, like bliss and euphoria and, abundance and all these things, like Randall always says, like when you're in and feeling that way, you truly like, you don't want to fall out of that feeling. So you will do, you want to help others. That's what, because when you're taken care of and you've taken care of yourself, and we're all really connected. So hurting or, pushing down anybody else, it's like you're hurting yourself, in a sense. But that's where I feel that we're going. And yeah, I guess that's it.
We'll leave it at
I kind
that.
of lost my train of thought there. Yeah.
We're getting near the end of the show here, so I wanted to pass it to Lee for any final words on Lee's comments on anything that Cody just said or that came up with my conversation, or anything that you wanted to say that you just wanted to kind of get out today. If there was something in your space that hasn't been communicated, by all means, now's the opportunity, and then I'll pass it on to Randall for the final show wrap.
Archon, AI, non-organic, synthetic intelligences. The simple thing that all of that's missing is love. The lighter aspect, or the light, or the God, the purity, the source aspect. So that's the bit that's missing out of it, which is why it's quarantined to the third stroke fourth dimensional aspects. And for us as humans, when we live in the third, fourth dimensional aspects, which is basically desire, anger, pride, shame, guilt, blame, victim mode, and all of these things, that's when we can be a little bit manipulated by these darker, non-constructive thought processes. And that's when we create and manifest for that other old thing that doesn't really exist anymore. As the light is, as the frequency is rising on this plane at the moment, those artificial intelligences that have not got the ability to create, they just run the old playbook, are being seen for what they are. As soon as you use logic in a compassionate way, you've screwed it. It doesn't know where to go, and it's just got to then do the same thing again, but harder. And it's got to create an anger response in you. As soon as you're in control of your own emotion, you don't react. There is no anger response. You've screwed it. So again, it comes back down to what's in you. How do you react? What's your compassion? Are you compassionate by nature, or are you a victim? And what everybody's being pushed into at this moment is that fear of, I don't know what's going to go on. But that's being done on purpose. So they step out of that fear into their power. So a lot of things are all aligning at the moment. We can look to what was, or we can look to what will be. I had a guy the other day said to me, humans are animals. They are vicious. And I had to say to him, they were. What will they be? And what happens if you put a lion in or a tame cat in a cage and keep poking it and starving it? It becomes vicious. Is it that by nature? No. So when we're talking about these what was, we've got to bear in mind that when we talk about what was in the present, this is what humanity is like. No, it wasn't. It's what humanity was like. Now we get to choose what we will be like. And we all know in our heart what we want. We all know how we want to be. It doesn't matter, it's a shit system. It doesn't matter what the system is. What do you want it to be now going forward? And that's where that love and compassion comes in, and that brighter feeling of, I don't want to feel stressed. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel blame. I want to give. I want to share. These ideas are coming in, going back to the childhood mentality of innocence, that purity of, we don't need to hog that or hold this. You can have a go. That's fine. And that release. And I think that what we're seeing at the moment is that release point becoming very, very prevalent or prudent or tangible in the public eye. They're having to release something. And that is the belief, or the false belief, or the blind belief, that authority figures and positions of power have a benevolent heart. That it's just that they've got to be like that because that's the way it is, or that's just the way life is. And all of these things are being released. And as they are released, we step into a higher level of being. And that's what frequency or vibration is, just a higher level of being, where you spend most of your time in a level of acceptance or wisdom or inner love, loving yourself. You don't have to love what everything's around you, but you just love yourself enough to say, that's okay. And this level of purity, that's where we're stepping into, and that's not very far away. So I don't talk too much about what was. There's an awful lot of rabbit holes we can run down about what, but until the truth comes out about all that, it's a quagmire. Phantom matrix stuff. There's so many different concepts of what was, but we don't know 100%. So until, you go down them and you get a little bit befuddled and fucking it's all this and it's that, and this was doing that, and all these demonics and satanics, Saturn meaning Satan, and what? Well, you don't know. So let it go. What we do know is that we have a choice moving forward. Is it going to be based on what was, or what we will create? And I think that a few of us here know the answer. Is it's going to be based on truth and transparency and purity. Once that top has been blown off the lies for the collective, then we'll see what they hearken after. Is it then personal wealth, or is it then truth? What the fuck? I need some truth now. It may be fearful to get that truth because of the amount you've got to release. But on the other side of that fear, you haven't got to go back to it again. Then it's just freedom. So I'm really, really interested to see how this goes, and when that truth pops, or what truth it will be, how it unfolds, how the dominoes fall, blah, blah, blah. But it's not far away. And so this is where we're actually creating the new in these conversations, by not putting any power into that, putting the power back into the light souls on this plane, the divine human souls that were born here. They're the ones with the power, man. And when they unite, bye-bye darkness. It's not far away.
Awesome, Lee. Wonderful words. Just a quick check in with Andy. Andy, you've heard a lot today. Anything stand out for you?
Yeah, I'm all over this love and energy kind of way of living. I'm I'm a bit of an opposite to Lee. Lee likes to rule the world from home and not leave his house too often.
This is the world. That's all. I'm not worried about
that. So I do Lee's work outside. I'm a neighborhood type guy. Don't like being indoors, so I get out quite a lot. Coffees, maybe pop in a pub, speak to just normal people, right? I take love in there and energy and give them a gift. I'm blissful. Like, it rubs off. I tell them about what's in front of us, what they can leave behind. And I make it a point of mine when I go out that every engagement, interaction I have with another person, I raise their energy levels. I don't leave them until they're smiling and they've given me a hug. And I've noticed that now people are really into it. Initially, I was treated with a little bit of skepticism and pushed away a few times. But now, I think people are ready. I think people are ready to take that next step, and it's a big step going from where they are to GPMS, for instance. It's a big step, and a lot of people have been so subjugated in their mind they can't make that step. But we have little lily pads in between. I'm a great one for analogies, or hurdles in a hurdle race, and we get to one and we overcome that, and we get to the next one and we overcome that. Eventually, we'll be at where we need to be.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Wise words. Thank you, Andy. That was fantastic. I saw Randall nodding his head and I was nodding my head, and we were going all over the place. We're good with this and going, hey, where's he been hiding? Those wasabi peas have just kicked in. Awesome work. That's
so it's
awesome.
okay, because what a lot of us have done is we've run ahead of the crowd and we've kicked all the hurdles down for them.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, I was the archetypal skeptic 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Lee and I used to argue, violently agree, and argue good-natured way because we're friends from polar opposites. Now this COVID experience at least has given me the time to come and speak to Lee and listen to you guys in the background, question some of my beliefs. I work in the city in London in finance and insurance, so I'm right at the heart of the monetary system. And I've never seen a pound note, but I've seen millions of pounds being transferred from one person to another or a company to another in very labyrinthine ways. Yeah, I've never seen any money ever.
Wow. Amazing stuff. Well,
it was an interesting one I saw. Just to add to that, it was an interesting one. Sorry, I saw the other day about PPP loans. And I think that's an Americanism. PPP loans, is that for business? It was a stat on this. It said since 1960, I think 5% of student loans have been forgiven.
Does that sound about right? Cody, you have anything to add on that one? Do you know anything?
The PPP, I think you're talking about the payment protection plan or whatever. Oh yeah.
So yeah, 600 billion wiped off in the last 8 years from that. But not one student, or 5% of student loans since 1960 been wiped. So the corporate structure can just throw money at something and that can go, but we've got to chase you for that. Now, as people start to weigh this up and start to go, what? Hang on, what? Yeah, they just won't have it anymore, you know. And again, even a lot of this now is coming to the public view if they're willing to look. And in a minute, they're going to be forced to look. This is what you have to see now, whilst this propaganda machine is blowing up. But there you go. I'll just throw that bit in.
All right. Thank you, Lee. I had this urge of saying this a couple of times during the show. Once when Andy was talking a few minutes ago, and once earlier when Cody was talking. And I just wanted to say thank you, COVID. Thank you so much for bringing us this opportunity for awareness, for this opportunity to really become awake. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Randall for final words, final thoughts, and a closing prayer.
Sure. Oh, God, you nailed it, William. Thank you. And gratitude is the best way to move forward. There's no doubt, because, you know, how else are we going to move forward? Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Lee. I was mesmerized by your talk today, Lee. It was just like, oh, this is awesome. And same with you, Cody. Like, you came really for it. second round when you were talking, Lee or Cody, about humanity and God's spark and stuff. I mean, God, I like to play with the IT, the information technology. That's the small IT, and then the big IT, capital IT, which is internal truth. And you know, there's no way information technology and garnering it and suppressing it, the creative capacity of human beings, which has happened, suppression and deception, was ever going to succeed. The internal truth is always going to come out. And there's so much of it just boiling out. And thank you, COVID. So great job, William. So yeah, I don't know. You want to go quick round again, or
I think we're already at time, Randall. So I think we're going to just shut her down and have you do the closing prayer.
I'm gonna say it different today instead of that same one. And I mean, don't get me wrong, repetition is the way to create that subconscious awareness and then hammer it home. Just keep repeating words to yourself. Use the English language, use light language, use whatever to put yourself in a state of euphoria, to put yourself in a state of love. And you know, there's all kinds of words that can be deceptive out there, but find some that are wonderful. Like, I am the abundant, healthy, sovereign, loving, harmonious, imaginative man, co-creating abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria for all, as the sender, the receiver, and the one who shares. Share being such an incredible word. The abundance, the abundant energy, frequency, resonance and vibration, the abundant currency of God, which is our energy, along with Mother Earth and her amazing treasures and resources, through a medium of exchange banking system to the people for their comfort and projects that are beneficial to all. I'll leave it at that. I love you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
Love you, brothers. Take care.
Bye.
For anybody watching the